All right, everybody, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are here today to learn how to consistently build an engaging experience for a distributed team, according to Dan Levy, who is not from the TV, but instead from Adelaide, Australia, where he runs the design consultancy change-making agency, More Space for Light. By the end, ideally, we will know how and when to engage best when planning a workshop with a distributed team, all kinds of activities, shared ideas, and we'll have access to Dan's amazing mural board. So hi, Dave. Hi, Rabia. Nice to see you this afternoon. Before we let Dan take it away for us, I do want to do a couple of quick plugs. So Dan is here. Both on his own right as someone who can share with us what he's learned in his work, and also as one of the advisors for our upcoming New Rules for Work project. If you have not seen that yet, if you haven't told all your friends and picked up your tickets and whatnot, consider doing so in the next 2 days, where our giant leap of faith discount is in play. Or if you want to help us actually make it go better, wait until January and pay more so that we can fund the whole thing. But there is a friends and family discount available out right now. We'll announce the preliminary program on December 1st, so in just a couple of days. And with that symposium, that's all about learning. So is this community. If you can take just a moment, I know not everybody can stay the entire time, so please go ahead and open the feedback form right now. So in case you have to leave, or you forget, or something happens and you are tempted to not leave feedback, it will be staring you in the face, ready to go later on. And with that, let's say hi, Nan, and turn it over to Dan. Thank you, Dan, so much for bringing this to us.
No worries. Thanks, Elise. Thanks for the lovely intro and inviting me to present today. Also, I see that feedback form come up in my chat window and I see all these emoticons and I'm just like, I feel like already people are going to start typing, right? It's always scary. Before we get going, could I get everybody to rename themselves in Zoom to your first name and where you're joining us from? Plus, just to give me an indicator, add a P or an F at the end, just so I know whether you're typically a facilitator or a participator in workshop gatherings. So to do this, if you're unfamiliar with Zoom, just put your mouse over that top right of your video window and select the button with the ellipsis, the 3 dots, and select rename from the options. You can see I've done it for myself. I even added in an Australian flag, even though I've got a British accent, which is super confusing, but I'm in Australia. I'll keep talking while you do this. Also, flag in the chat if you won't be able to use the collaboration board we'll be using in this session, as I'm not too sure if you're on a mobile, you have a single screen, or you have like a teeny weeny screen or whatever it might be, just so we know that we can team you up with people that can access the board so you can fully participate, because we're going to be putting you into teams today. Obviously, we're never sure how many people are going to be at an event. So, yeah, well, I think we're going to be putting people in 2s or 3s. What we doing, Elise?
We'll just have to wait and see when we get closer.
Wait and see.
Probably so 2s.
Yeah, 2s. All right. So I'm going to expand a little bit on Elise's intro, and I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction to who I am and the topic, something that really interests us. So my name's Dan Levy, not Schitt's Creek Dan Levy, but founder and principal of More Space for Light. And at More Space, our mission is to unlock an organization's ability for innovation and imagination. So our methods build capability and creative thinking to encourage an entrepreneurial mindset, so people in organizations are better equipped to tackle big problems. They feel empowered to create new solutions, and they have the confidence to put them in motion. So we're mainly known for our transformation programs, which include strategy to action, innovate by design, and future thinking, future doing. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about you during this session as well. So just to kick off, I just want to get a heat check so I can see the types of workshop sessions you have delivered most over the past 12 months. So we should have a poll somewhere. I'm just going to bring that poll up and I'm just going to launch it. So hopefully you have access. If you're able just to let us know, and whether you're in person, you're remote, or you're hybrid, what you're mainly doing. And I'm going to take another sip of coffee because I haven't had enough coffee yet today. Okay, so mainly it's remote or in person. Just let me see from the reactions, who's doing hybrid here? Two or four. Okay, 3, 7. Oh, you can select 2 things. I thought you could only select 1 thing with the poll. I thought they were remote buttons. That's messed me up. I'm like counting it and there's 12 people, but there's 6 people. Okay. So we're all slowly coming back and we are living a life less ordinary. Like people are asking the questions, whether we're remote by default anymore. Are we in the office just Wednesdays? Can I fit a swim or a run between the morning stand-up and my team meeting? I mean, in Melbourne, some of our clients don't come to the office on Mondays and Fridays. And this wasn't, I'll share the, sorry, the poll keeps coming up over my camera. I don't even think this was formalized top down. This is just something teams decided. I believe this is the case for many of the bigger cities. Is this right? Are people finding that people in workplaces are just deciding when they want to come in? Is this being self-organized or are leaders telling teams? I'm just looking at the chat.
Oh, in the chat. Okay.
Oh, no, Nancy, please come off of mute.
Oh.
There's only a few of us. We're all friends here.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of interviews with senior leaders from all across different industries who are moving to hybrid. And I would say, in my experience, it's pretty split, where there are mandates in place that either are ignored completely or partially ignored, or rarely does everyone adhere to the mandates 100% in my experience, or organizations are leaving it up to departments and or teams to decide the cadence and the days that they wish to come in. So I'm seeing it's all across the board, and I don't think it's overwhelmingly one or the other from what I've seen.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. Thanks for sharing. And Amy just added self-organized in a small non-profit, generally not coming in. Large tech company teams come in when needed, if needed, not often. And I think since the end of the pandemic, people really have been reluctant to go back into the office, as we're seeing. I mean, how can you compete with turning up for work, putting on a pair of heels? I mean, it's pretty awesome. You can't wear these for work. I'm surprised I haven't created some sort of work boot. In Australia, there doesn't seem to be any adaptable working policies that I've seen. Things are more organic, as some of you have shared. And we have seemed to have stumbled into hybrid modes of work, often without formalized process or agreement. And it is a hot topic in the professional domain. I mean, has anyone got any weird experiences that they've had in a hybrid as a facilitator they can share? I'll give you an example. I ran a workshop where I was on the TV screen and everyone was in the office. So I thought they didn't communicate to me how we were connecting, and they were all sitting around a table and I was remote. I've had iPads with people's faces on a robot following me around a workshop, and I've been in the space. Has anyone had that? It was mental. How about anyone care to share any weird experiences they've had? How about you, Dave? I know you've done quite a few workshops.
I haven't had nothing weird other than, like, I guess the normal weird of a hybrid, with the standard camera view and you can't see everybody in the room, and just some of the awkwardness that goes with that. So in a sense, the weird has become normal.
Yeah, weird.
It's the normal hybrid weird.
Yeah. I mean, have you done where you've turned up, you said, with the laptop screens, and you've just got a row of laptop screens or Surface Pros on the table and 2 people in the room, just because they've accepted the meeting and didn't bother to turn up. Like, has anyone experienced that? And, you know, you really have to think on your feet. And we've put things in place where we've got somebody to have one camera pointed at the whiteboard so they can always see and they can contribute, and having to adapt all the time. So, I mean, that's just some examples. And I want to stress, many organizations have adapted really well. But for some, though, people still suffer from Zoom gloom or Teams trauma. People are all sitting in all-day remote workshops, leading to burnout. It's like the worst daytime TV channel ever, the Talking Head TV channel. Plus, all sorts of other inefficiencies from not effectively maximizing people's time when they get together. And then you layer on all the other anxieties with being at home and trying to balance work life, and when your shopping will arrive at the door. It's pretty unknown, and it's pretty uncertain for us as facilitators. And the big risk we've found is that many people are doubling down on the bad habits they picked up from remote, and the legacy ones that we thought we'd left behind when we worked in person together prior to the pandemic. And this is why we found it's important to take a step back again and consider the why, the where, the when, and the how we engage. How do we make the spaces that we occupy and the tools we use work for us? And as I said, this is something that's been front of mind for many of the organizations we've been working with, and for us over the last 12 months. So our learning objective today is to present a hybrid model we use to plan out the methods and modes of a program of work. Our focus is specific to connecting and collaborating with your team and distributed workforce, whether you're an external or an internal facilitator. Now, we only have 80 minutes, just under, so please consider what we present today as a taster. If we don't get through all the activities, that's cool. I'd rather have a narrow and deeper discussion around one or two things than try and just rush through. There's not as many of us today, so we can hold that space to have a discussion. A great outcome of this session, for me anyway, is that you have a model to refer to when planning your modes of engagement, which can help you or your organization build that adaptable and consistent experience for team collaboration. Plus, you also get some ideas of some new tools and a remote board to use independently. And these tools can be used for any type of challenge, for any domain. And I'm happy to chat offline beyond this session to help you connect the dots. So really today, I encourage you to play, explore, take away what is relevant to you, and use this as an opportunity to learn, share, meet new friends, because often we have no idea what others are doing in a similar domain. So I'm really hoping that we all get to share and bring the juice today. So I am going to, because I don't want to ruin my setup, because I know once I share screen, I'll ruin my setup and I'll have to read something Zoom doesn't do very well. It doesn't let you kind of keep everything. Once you go share screen and come back, you have to reorganize all your windows. So I'm going to share the mural in the chat. And when you come into the mural, I'm just going to ask you, you'll enter as a visitor, if you could change the name from Turtle or whatever it presents to you to your name in your Zoom. It'll just make it really easier and some form of consistency, so I can speak to you directly in regards to your notes. So I'll just pop in the chat. You'll see that mural link. So come on in. And as I see you all pop in, I'm going to ask you to follow me. Oh, summon you. Awesome, you're all there. So I'll just summon you across. I know it's super tempting to go and explore, but just trust me for a moment. So let's start by going across our working board. So this is the hybrid model that we use, and then I'm going to give you a quick run through of what we got planned for today. So this is familiar because I know this has been presented already at a previous meeting, but we're using it deep. We actually use it practically for planning how we engage with people. So we know, with the amount of uncertainty of who and how we engage with the group over the duration of a workshop program, for example, we started thinking about how we can more effectively work together, regardless of the spaces we occupy in the modes, whether that's asynchronously, not working together at the same time, or synchronously together at the same time. Is everyone familiar with asynchronous and synchronous work? Never like to assume. Cool. By reapplying these modes deliberately to physical ways of working, we could design consistency to map out the different ways we work together and the behaviors we expect and how we look up after each other as a team. And as you can see, as I mentioned, this isn't something new. We work this way already, which to me is perfect because people are familiar with these ways of working. So they feel far more comfortable using this model. And the value is being able to map things out and organize them so you can plan the types of team engagements you have. So there's two things that for us that are critical to this model. The first is the 2x2 axis of time and space. So we're referring back to those working modes I mentioned synchronously. So you've got the same time, same space in the top left. There's that could be your traditional in real life or IRL, as I recently learned that acronym. Same time, different space. And that's how we're connecting at the moment through Teams. That's the top right. And then the asynchronously modes, which is different time, same space. So that's the bottom left. And that was something that was new for us, that we'd always taken for granted. And that's something we've found a lot of people take for granted as they work in a hybrid manner. And then you've got the different time, different space. And this is something that people are finding really difficult to let go of, especially leaders, where they let people work asynchronously and leave things and come back later with global teams and things like that. This is a big pain point for them. And then the second point I want to make about this is using it allows us to be a lot more deliberate in why we need to connect, e.g. share info, make a decision. Because once this is understood, you can decide on the what in terms of what we need to do, the where. This often comes down to who you need to connect with and their availability. So once you start mapping that out, you can see when and where you can have those conversations with teams in the US or Europe, etc. And then finally, the how. This is when you decide on a platform, whether that's Teams, a physical communal wall, or Mural, and it often can be dictated by the where. So we use this model to plan an engagement. We aren't always showing the client, but it serves to provoke our thinking and how we plan end to end from a diagnostic to a final retro. We work really visually with this and Venn diagrams and things like that. Has anyone got any thoughts, any comments about this model that you're looking at? Anyone? Do you want to come off of mute?
I'm curious to see how you use it, Dan.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Elise. So, all right. So we're going to use this model to explore our collective collaboration rituals. So I'm going to take you on a little journey on the board now. So asked to be summoned. So we're going to start with a sailboat. Is everyone familiar with sailboat activity? We use them in retros. It helps us synthesize and get insights in regards to things that are working and things that aren't. We're going to take your insights and we're going to look and see what emerges out of them by mapping them onto that model, the working mode model. And then we're going to have a discussion looking at that and the color codes of the pinks and the positives and the negatives to discuss what we need to start or what we need to stop in the way we work together. And then if we have time at the end, we're just going to have a discussion and talk about a bit more of a rational discussion on what needs to be true to make that shift. So we'll be using Mural today. You're already on it. Is anyone not familiar with Mural? Could you let me know? Oh, cool. Thanks, Nan. Thanks. Can I just say thank you for being brave and putting up your hand? Because I ran a workshop yesterday and I assumed everyone was familiar with Miro. And it was when I went in the breakout groups that I saw that there was a little bit of tension. So just so you know, and for those people that were brave enough to put up their hand, if you hold down the space bar, you can move around. So I'm going to release you so you can all do your thing. You can move around if you hold the space bar and left click. So just move around, or you can use that little Mickey Mouse hand in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you need to make sticky notes, we've already got some on the board to help you, but you just double click and a sticky note will appear and then you just start typing. A menu will come up. So if you click on a sticky note, a menu will come up. You can change the color, the font, the shape, or you can drag it, make it bigger if you've got something you really want to get a point across. If there's any point you get lost on the board, now this will be really helpful for you. In the top right-hand area, there's a button that says outline. Click on that outline, a panel will slide across, and it lists all the activities we're doing, and it will take you straight into view. Obviously, if you get stuck, Elise is here. Everybody else seems to be familiar with that. Just get in touch and we'll make sure you don't get left behind. Does that sound good? Well, I got 2 thumbs up there. I'm loving that. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to bring you all the way across. Those of you will recognize this chap. He is Nicolas Cage. So as you can see, I just want to understand your persona, either as a facilitator or participant when you come into the workshop. So I'm going to give you 1 vote each. We're going to just I do these types of things just to get people familiar with the board and help them build up confidence. This is a selected section, so give me a second. So all you'll have to do is just use your cursor. Oh, where'd you go? I've just lost where I am. Here we are. Yeah, there we are. Just use your cursor and click on, why won't it let me do that? Start. Yeah, just click on which nick you feel. All you got to do is click on top of him. So it should work. Oh, this isn't working at all. All right, end voting session. Give me a second. I'll give you all dots. That's no good. So just move across a dot to indicate which nick you are. That's cool. Hopefully it's not in regards to today. It's just generally as a workshop facilitator or participant. This is all about being adaptable when you're using remote. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. Okay, I'm going to ask, who put the excited? Come off of mute. Tell us about that.
That's me.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, just being around other people just gets me excited. Can't hold it back. Puts a smile on my face, brings out the energy, and love generating the natural energy in a room.
That's in person, yeah?
No, virtual as well.
Awesome. And you facilitate, obviously, 2 screens. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And I'm just going to pick on someone else. There's an F and a P there, Rabia. You're quiet sitting there. How about yourself? Where did you go?
My button is on focused, and that's just because I try to figure out where everybody is coming from. Usually the meetings that I'm in are of folks who know each other better than I do, know any of them. And so just trying to sort out all of the, different sensory and information kind of streams that I'm picking up, and move ahead with the different tasks and opportunities that the energy is presenting that are on tap.
Do you have any examples on how you channel that energy?
I don't. I've never thought about having to put it into words, because I think that is just the particular batch of sensory input that I pick up personally.
Awesome. Okay. Anyone want to? How about yourself, Kurt? Where did you go?
So I went to relaxed.
Okay, and that is at the start. Is that as a facilitator or as a participator?
More as I wouldn't describe myself as a facilitator. More of either a participant. I'm more on the business development side, so I try to keep things as relaxed as possible. I find it makes things go a little bit more smoothly.
Yes, yeah. Well, I've got to say, I feel you. I try to be as relaxed as possible, but inside I'm usually bees. So it's like right now I'm bees, but I'm trying to be relaxed, because as you could see with the dot activity, it's like the slightest thing can go wrong. But usually what I find as a participant, I'm usually bees as well, because you come into a meeting and you know that meeting could, like, have you ever seen Fantasia where they chop up the broomsticks? And that meeting could become more meetings. The meeting becomes a precursor for another 100 meetings, and you never get anything done. So I think there is a great argument, and there's a lot of chatter about getting meetings right. I mean, Elise has been doing a great job of kind of educating me, and a lot of other people are in this space. So, and it's amazing when you speak to people that don't spend time to consider how they put together meetings and the expected outcomes. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing with that. So that's really interesting. So we're gonna move across to our first activity, the sailboat activity. Before I go through this, has anyone participated or run a sailboat before? Amy has, Elise has. Awesome. So those that haven't, so think of this as two ways. So we're not just talking about the content here. I'm going to step out. So think about the tool as well, how you can apply it. So we use this in retros, just to get some feedback before we start the retro. And it provides a low stakes way of sharing feedback. And we use that metaphor of a sailboat to share the pros, which are the wins, and the cons, which are the anchors of how we and our teams, like in this example, how we and our teams have adapted to incorporate different modes of collaboration. So I'm going to ask you to think of that when you go into your teams in a moment, how you have adapted to incorporate different modes of collaboration, in-person, remote, or hybrid. And our goal here is really to create a shared knowledge bank of information that we can bring across and refer to throughout the session, and will hopefully uncover some trends. So in a moment, Elise is just setting up 3 breakout rooms. So we're going to put you in pairs, and I'm going to ask you in your pair to capture your conversations on the board, which is super easy. You just double click or start typing, looking at these blue, just bring you all in, blue, and I'm release you those blue sticky notes. 1 insight per sticky. Don't worry about waste, because you can use as many as you like. So in a moment, I'm going to, for 7 minutes, I'm going to ask you in your groups to just focus on the wins, the positives from your collaboration experiences, the things that have helped you move forward to excel as a team, a unit, organization, consultant. Don't worry about that physical location. Just consider the experience in regards to how you work together, the methods and other work-related activities you have changed or started to improve your gatherings, how you look after each other, the rituals that you believe and currently do to make a more comfortable and engaging gathering, and all the other areas you collaborate and meet pre and post. Now, if you just look to the side, there's a blue panel and it has those prompts in there. Before I send you off into your groups, does anyone have any questions, anything they're unsure of? Awesome. So everyone, I can take by the slight smiles, everyone's feeling good. So you're going to go in, just focus on those wins. Elise, could we send everybody across to breakouts?
All right, everybody, go blow positivity across this board. Done.
Done. We're recording, aren't we? Hey. Hello, everyone. I thought we'd go round and just learn. I'm sorry I didn't get round to everyone's team. Nancy, I didn't get into your room, so I apologize, but there were such interesting conversations going. I just wanted to listen. I'd love to learn, like Amy, Nan, do you want to share with us what you were discussing? We're just going to spend about 10 minutes here, 5-10 minutes, just to learn a bit about your notes. And if we miss anything, if we can make sure that it's all on the board, that would be amazing. So yeah, go for it, Amy. Now
we can talk together, Amy. We had a great conversation and we were so in sync about one of the things we love about remote working is less of like showing up for a formal meeting where you just talk and then you leave and have all this work to do, but you're both meeting and doing at the same time. So you're interacting in a more casual way, getting things done, feeling the support, but you have less of this like I am on time. And we talked about different technologies we're using to do it. What would you add, Amy?
I would add the one other piece is well, two more things. That the real-time work together also is complemented with quality asynchronous communication. And Nan talked about how essential it is to have trust that we have a shared purpose. So but we had a lot of fun talking about the tools and the possibility for working meetings.
Well, and I just want to expand on that as well, because working meetings is something that meetings generally are quite static. So everything goes on pause whilst you have a conversation. Everyone has to listen. And the whole point of it is we're not going to act until we get our minutes so we know who does what, or we're waiting until the end where the racy comes down and everyone's sitting there like, oh no, please don't put my name over there. But what Amy and Nam were discussing, I hope you don't mind me just opening this up, because it just changes the whole concept of a meeting. Like we have forced collaboration time in the context of a meeting. So we're all sitting together and you'll say, oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, I'll just bring that, or I'll update the spreadsheet whilst you're going. And it's about how can we do the work in the meeting? So that changes as well, I guess, the types of people you bring in, I suppose, because you want people that are doers. And it also makes you think about, well, what type of meeting are we having now? Are we having a share info meeting? Are we having a make a decision? And do we have the assets? Do we need to be the people in? And when do we need to? Yes, really interesting. Thank you for sharing. Do you have anything to add on top of that, Amy? No. How about anyone else? Has anyone else experienced working meetings? Yeah, Nancy, do you want to just share about that before we ask you to talk about what your group?
Yeah, there's one colleague in particular, we work on a number of projects together, and we will set maybe a 2-hour time where we're actually going to create work products independently and to some degree together. So we'll be working, and then I'll say, well, wait, Michael, what do you think of this? Does this work? And he'll answer, well, sorry, bad timing, my dog. And so we'll actually be working side by side, but virtually. And we do that intentionally because we know we want to build on each other's ideas, and it's so much more efficient and fun than sending emails and after waiting for a reply or sending a chat.
Awesome. Yeah. I still get fascinated when I'm working on a Google Doc and somebody else is typing on it at the same time. I always feel like I'm in some sort of space age movie or something. Does anyone else anything to add on that now? Go for it.
I just wanted to ask Nancy, are you with your colleague, what platform are you using? Zoom or a different one?
Well, we usually use Zoom, and then typically we'll share on Google Docs, and we give each other access for editing or commenting. But typically we use Zoom.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, Nancy, maybe you could share with us what you and your team spoke about.
Was Sue-Ann your partner, Nancy? Because I don't think we've heard from Sue-Ann yet. I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah,
hi everyone.
Sue-Ann was fascinating. So Sue-Ann, why don't you relay what you came up with?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we had a really great conversation, and also this experience, because I work in a hospital setting. So although we've got a lot of hybrid meetings, virtual ones, actually majority of them have been in person, just because we've been allowed to work in person over the past couple of years, and this need to kind of respond really quickly to a lot of things. But once we go into a hybrid kind of setting, virtual, I think we talked about this idea of increased trust with people, and letting go and going with the flow. And like initially I put my dot on the relaxed avatar, and just like going with the flow. More intentional communication was another thing, because working in person, you have a lot of serendipitous kind of conversation, and you can't really plan for that in a virtual setting. So we communicate via Teams a lot. I mean, that's our main kind of tool that we use. And working on shared documents is great. I've been working meetings where 4 or 5 people actually, work on the exact same document, and it's surprising how much work you can get like done in an hour, just because everyone's kind of like focused and working on different parts. And when you need to submit something in like the next couple of hours and respond quickly, that really works really well. So yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Awesome. Have you built any like prototypes as well remotely?
Prototypes as in what
Like
kind?
products. So for instance, you go through some form of design thinking type experience where you need to design sprint.
Yeah, a lot of journey
remotely.
mapping on Miro, and that's highly visual. I'm like Mural, like tools like Mural are really really great because it adds that different level of engagement for people in the virtual setting, right? You don't have that, I guess, that situation and in-person kind of communication to work off of. So like the visual definitely helps. And it just allows everyone to align on the same page.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, when we found that as well, that's a really good point with working remotely. The journey maps that you create, it's so much they're so much more flexible because you can take them out to different teams. Whereas before, everyone was like, oh, we've got to get it all printed properly, and then we're going to share the PDF round. PDF goes round, 10 people say this isn't right, and then it has to go back to the printers. They get the invoice from the designers. But now, you've got that permission to put it on an actual mural board, and everybody can add their own version or question things and add comments. We found the same. Does anyone ever run a problem tree analysis activity? It's like with cause and effect. So is anyone familiar with that? It's like the fishbone, if anyone's familiar with
the fishbone diagram, right?
Yeah,
Ishikawa.
But basically, yes, it's like the design version of tree. We love using a metaphor in this design world. But what's great about using it, so you go down. So what are the impacts of a problem, and then you go up. What are the effects? And the idea being you move further and further down and see how impacts relate to impacts. But what we've found for using that, especially remotely or even in person, because we convert all our boards to Mural, is that all of a sudden they'll be like, oh, we haven't spoken to these people. And then all of a sudden you can like very easily take this artifact to somebody else, and then they can add and question and get a whole new kind of view on things. So it's really been powerful. Sorry, I'm waffling. This is
I also like to add to that real quick, if that's okay. I think the infinite canvas is so powerful as well. Because when you work on, like a Word doc or anything, it's quite limited in that just spatially. So that was interesting for us.
It can also be quite dangerous. We've been working with teams that it's out of control. How about yourself? What did you and your pair, what did you discuss today?
Our notes are more towards the top. I think the one thing that I thought was very poignant was, how do you keep teams working together? Having that shared purpose is so critical, and it's easier said than done. Because what I found because my background's more in consulting, you have hierarchies, right? You have different roles on these teams, and within large consultancies, you have partner, senior manager, you have your staff, you have business development people, and it's easy to fall into the trap that you defer to the more experienced person or the more senior person. And what I've found over my career is that some of my best ideas came early on in my career. I think I was maybe a little bit more inspirational when I was younger, right, as opposed to now. So I spend a lot of my time trying to support the success of all of the team members and make them feel that their opinions matter and that they're important, because I think a lot of times you move down a certain path because people are comfortable moving in that way. And I think there needs to be a little bit more disruption about how teams work together. I've been involved in a lot of dysfunctional meetings over my career, and the struggle is how do you have the right people at the meeting at the right time, interacting in the right way, as opposed to 25 people in a meeting and you're wondering who the other 20 people are. What are they doing there? Why are they even present? So how do you really optimize having the right people present and not having the other meeting tourists present for whatever reason they have for being there?
Gosh, you call them tourists. I just call them warm bodies.
Yeah, we've always used that meeting tourist phrase because
I love it.
you just have those people that are just constantly there, and you're like, why are you here? But like, isn't there anything better that you could be doing?
Yeah. FOMO. Look, we're going to get onto the anchors in a moment. I'm just wondering, like, there's some really interesting insights. Did you or Robert, did you cover any other great things, any positives before we send off and go into the anchors?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the shared purpose, inviting opinions, respecting, other insights.
Go for it, Rebecca. Thank you, Kurt.
One of the things that I have really been enjoying lately is just the use of very simple tools that can that don't have any sort of barrier to entry for the people who are working all the way out to the line level to be able to provide their input. And, just a document that's structured in a way to let people know that their input is actually valued as an artifact coming out of the meeting. So I think, like this mural, the mural was great for us as facilitators because we have some familiarity with that. But I mean, I've been seeing it done really nicely lately on even Excel and PowerPoint, which I feel like, and I mentioned this to Kurt, is just a function of the client or like the group that I'm working with, that because it's very often not the case. But just making sure that there's somewhere that constructively directs people's energy so that we don't have those who kind of like just sort of try to swoop in and hijack at a meta level. The conversation, there's something for everybody to do. That persists through the week to the next meeting, and so people can bring their energy back to that. I feel like that's been guiding conversations in a really nice way lately.
That's awesome, and I'm glad you mentioned the tools because I saw Nan bend down and lean down and start writing something down. So Excel, yeah, I don't think you. I mean, murals basically PowerPoint on drugs, isn't it? Really, it's like, you can achieve everything, and it's all about not letting the tools and the tech get in the way of the conversation. And that's, again, coming back to this conversation about working modes. It's not about letting the physical or digital space be a constraint for collaboration and communication. That's a really great share. We've spent a little bit longer here because I've just been learning lots, and there's been some great conversations. Like I said before at the beginning, I'd really rather go narrow and deep to hold these conversations and rush people through this whole session. So we're going to look at anchors now. I'm going to put you back in your pairs, and I'd like you to discuss the negatives and challenges. And Kurt, you started to do that before. You've encountered from your collaboration experiences. I'd like you to think about processes, regulations, rule sets, or other guiding frameworks, the knowledge that is shared and prepared, such as data and insights. So you refer to the Excel sheets. People, the capabilities and suitability of people will typically gather. Kurt started to talk about that before. The tourists, as well as tools, technology and platforms used to collaborate and communicate. And I know, Nan, I'm expecting big things from you there with the tools. Sorry. So we're going to put you back in for 7 minutes. Just hold that discussion again. And the reason we're putting you in these smaller groups is just because it's easier. We'll get more insights, and then you can bring that to the table. We can collaborate on what you discussed. We'll learn a lot more. So are we ready to pop people back in for another 7 minutes, Elise? So we'll see you
I popped Dan in.
So I'm just going to add, one of the worst things about remote meetings is when you put people in breakouts and then all of a sudden a timer ends because there's no natural stop to a good conversation. Kurt, Rabea, I was listening to you both and I was nodding along and then we just all went. So apologies for that. And as you can most probably tell, I try and make my workshop in the workshops we run at More Space. We like to think of them as double dip experiences. Double dip, if anyone's familiar, we don't do it anymore because of COVID. But you get your dip, you take a bite, and then you put your like chip back in, and nobody's judgy. Everyone's like, "Yeah, that's cool." So, and that means that everything's a lot more fluid and organic, and we like it to be like a conversation. So that whole kind of 7 minutes we're going back together is still jarring for me. Amy, go for it.
I just want to say that that's a function of Zoom, and that some of the tools have come up with different ways to do breakouts and bring you back that are a bit more fluid and more comfortable, more natural.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
We can't transition, can we, as human beings? I see it with my little ones, my kids. So even like that, somebody's just added a message. Excellent metaphors, Dan. Yeah, well, it's from the consultant strategy. You got to have like a bunch of them in your head, don't you? I'm going to ask you to share your challenges, Rabea. Do you want to start and share what you and Kurt were talking about? So it was a really interesting conversation.
Oh, we had several, so I can share a couple that popped up for me, and one was just building on your metaphor of, or Kurt's metaphor actually of meeting tourists, is when you get into meetings and things start going in sort of a way that you cynically feel like you could have predicted, and then you sit back and draw your energy out of the meeting and start having a side conversation with somebody that you vibe with really well. And so both of you have drawn your energy away, sort of to protect it. That was one, I think, and the other, yeah. Let me stop there because I know you have a lot of ground to cover.
No, please do. Look, please carry on. That's fine. I've got the time. Don't worry. I've got a plan. I know where we're going.
Kurt had a really fun one that was kind of more existential on the just meetings period. Do you want to share that one, Kurt?
You're on mute.
Mute.
I don't remember which one that was though.
Oh, the one about,
I don't want to say a bad one.
No, the one that it was meetings. It started out like a Tolstoy novel. It was like meetings are inherently flawed, and that one.
Yeah, I do believe that. Not that I have all the answers, but I do feel the pain. I think the one challenge that I am constantly dealing with is I have a heavy project management background. I've been doing that for more years than I want to explain. And in project management, it's all about scope, schedule, budget, right? That's the triple constraint, right? What are we going to do? When are we going to do it? How much do we have to spend? And a lot of people say, scope, schedule, budget, pick two, because you can't have three, right? But I've seen so many different projects and programs be on scope, on schedule, on budget, and huge failures. They don't achieve the business objectives, the desired business outcomes. And I find with a lot of meetings, I'm constantly trying to bring the team back to business objectives. Like, what are we trying to achieve? Because everybody gets so in the weeds about this and that and these words and this. It's got to be focused on the business outcomes. And what Rabea and I were talking about is business executives, they understand you need to architect and orchestrate things in a certain way to achieve those business outcomes, but they mostly only care about the business outcomes. That's about it. And if things go wrong, but you still achieve that outcome, they're happy. So I try to keep meetings focused on the business outcomes because I know for my clients, that's all they really care about.
Cool. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing, Kurt. I think that's really, really important. I'm just looking at what Elise said. The Tolstoy of breakouts. How about yourself, Amy? Nan, what was your conversation? Amy, why don't you share?
I wanted to respond to what Kurt was saying. And then I think that we are experiencing something that we were already experiencing. It's just the pain has been taken up to a level 11, and that people within organizations are not trained to facilitate, have no idea how decisions are made and how to get through that painful process well, and why we need Elise and all of her work. That this isn't really about facilitators, it's about spreading the skills of facilitation throughout organizations. So I'll just say that. And then Nan, what do you want to add about our time together?
That when we are meeting with somebody who just does emails and meetings only, our heart sinks, because there are other ways to communicate, and we know we're going to be limited by just using those ones.
Awesome. So then finally, thank you for sharing. And finally, how about yourself, Sue-Ann? We had a really interesting conversation that I was part of.
Yeah, I'll actually get Nancy to share, because most of it, you led the conversation, Nancy.
Thanks, Sue-Ann. I'd say if I have to pick one on these sticky notes, it's lack of explicit shared principles. And that is for everything from what the purpose of meetings for and how they're run, how decisions are made, what communication channels a team will use for what, how we report status, where and when. I see very little in the form of explicit operating principles that go beyond just a meeting norm in the work I do. And I think since organizations many I work with have gone from face-to-face to all virtual, are now going hybrid, some for the first time, really regardless of if it's their first time or not. I think everyone needs to revisit any principles they once had and agree on new ones. And I see that as the biggest barrier by far. And it has really all the other ones, it touches all the other ones, most of the other ones. A couple others we had is resistance to technology, which I saw more at the beginning of COVID, but I still see. And then hand in hand with that often are IT policies that disallow the use of certain tools that would be really cool and everyone wants to use, but IT says no. So that's something I come upon pretty often. And then time zone differences, but the more we use async communications, the time zone different, and the more we don't rely on team meetings is the only way to communicate. Time zone differences can be ameliorated somehow.
Yeah, and I think Nancy, just expanding on your point about agility and business agility, I think that's really indicative, especially from IT departments that are so used, especially with their Microsoft Teams and all that rubbish. There's just no wiggle room whatsoever. And you're looking at a lot of these new systems and platforms that are coming up. For example, Butter, they've never thought about themselves as building an enterprise product, and haven't thought as part of their strategy how they integrate with bigger, teams and stuff. They've built their own entity, and they've seen, and I don't mean to call them out because I know this is being recorded, but I know it's a big tension or a big pain point for them. Like, how do they build this product when the default's Teams? Nobody's going to change. And like how do you compete against these IT policies? And Mural have done it really well. I know that for a fact. They've really focused their efforts to meet people with their questions. So it's really interesting. So I really want us to apply, look at this model that we spoke about. And I'm going to just bring you all across now. And we're going to work on this collaboratively. I'm not going to put you into groups. We've only got 20 minutes left in the session. And I've brought across, I'm going to release you. I've brought across everyone's sticky notes. And I'm going to ask you to start plotting your sticky notes. Whilst we're all together, you can zoom in and just put them where you believe the biggest impact is. Because it would be great for us to start to sense make this information and see where these challenges or where these goals are actually happening. Now, if you want to turn off people's cursors, you just roll over your bubble at the bottom and a little panel will come up and you can click on show cursors and it will just disable everyone's cursors because sometimes the screen can get a bit busy. I'm going to drag across a couple of blue sticky notes as well. So if you want to add any more, because sometimes once you see the model in the context, you can start to add new things. But it'd be great to see where you feel these notes and discussions that you've made, where they fit on the board, and we can have a look at that. Go for it.
I'm going to say something not to derail. I'll keep moving the stickies around. What I find is that we need when we're thinking about how we work as teams, what our purpose is, what we're trying to achieve, that those sticky notes and the challenges, what I find is valuable, looking at all of the ways we can work together and making choices based on what we want to accomplish, based on our challenges. And so we can move the stickies, but I actually think the challenges are about collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Are they specific though? Like, because some of the collaboration that you might do, they might only happen remotely. So some of them might happen in person. There might be some of your experience shares that you've discussed. There might be a big gap on the board where you might not have even considered different time, same space. So that's something that emerged for us, for example.
Yeah, let's do the exercise. I want to see it too. I just with the organizations I work with, I'm always trying to help them think more holistically, more purpose driven, rather than thinking in the boxes. But
I understand. So I get what you're saying, and sometimes so in regards to what we're doing is affinity mapping or clustering, and sometimes I'll start bottom up by clustering things together. But here, really, this for the purposes of today is more of a sense making activity to see where these tensions are held. Because coming back to the conversation that Sue-Ann and Nancy were talking about, you can see where you're falling down in your policies and your agreements and the way you're working, because you can start to see where there's problems. So that's how we've used it. I mean, if we were using this in regards to planning out programs, so I'll just keep talking and please just jump in as you're going. If we were using this to plan out a program on how we work together and our focus was on team collaboration, and how we were setting up the principles for success, we'd use this as some sort of diagnostic tool just to hold the conversation, just to work out, well, where's your problems happening? And we can start mapping, your leadership, they're never in. Okay, so that's a big problem. They're never available. We can start to think about, okay, how are we going to plan out a workshop program where we are bringing them into the conversation early, because they're not going to be available. They're only here, and that's the type of way we'd use it. I have to drop off. Thank you, Rebecca. Lovely to meet you. So I'm looking here and there's a lot of things that are happening in the same time, different space, different time, different space world. Nothing happening same time, same space.
Well, I think that's because we were focusing on virtual and hybrid, I think. So, and a lot of these I think are applied to all, like lack of explicit shared principles. That is not in any one quadrant more than another. And I can't put that in the middle because that box is in the middle. But I think a lot of these apply. It isn't either or. I think a lot of these, that's why it's a little confusing.
We can copy and paste things as well.
But some don't lend themselves to picking one or the other. Some are universal.
Yeah.
So Dan, would you recommend putting it in all quadrants? Like have 4 copies?
If you feel that something is applicable to both, please just duplicate it across. And how you duplicate it is just Control C or Apple C, and or you click drag it and it'll duplicate. I'm just interested to see, from your experience, where your biggest pain points are, or where your biggest opportunities are. Does anyone else want to call anything else whilst we're going?
I think it's the approach that you take. I think if you're trying to include others, you're going to do it in a different way, depending on whether you're in the same space at the same time. The approach that you take is going to be very different, either what leads up to it or how you do it or what comes after the fact. That's why I straddled a couple of them and put one in the middle too. I think the problems are shared regardless, right? Because when I started working, I had a company car and an AT&T calling card, and if I wasn't on the phone with my customer, I was sitting in front of them. And how different it is now, right? All these collaboration platforms, all these new ways of working, even having a laptop, right, where you can send an email as opposed to having to have a letter typed up. It's just such a dynamically different world. And it creates a lot of opportunities for improvement, but it also creates a lot of confusion and dysfunction. And I've found that fascinating over my career.
In regards to you're a consultant, if I'm correct. Is that Kurt? Is that right?
I'm on the business development side for consultancy, and I moved from services about 9 months ago over to product. So I'm making that adjustment.
Okay, so you're not. I guess you don't work. Do you work for an organization, or do you work for a consultancy that goes into organizations?
So I came from mid-tier large consultancy, and then followed the chairman over to a startup that's more of a product-based organization.
Cool. Okay, and so are you mainly hybrid, or are you remote, or are you in person? What type of working modes is your team?
We're remote. We have operations in the US, and then we're getting really good at collaboration because most of our dev team is in the Ukraine. So many calls lately where people are on their computer and there's no lights on in the house.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Does anyone have work out of a physical space? Suanne, are you working out of a physical? So thanks for sharing, by the way, Kurt. Do you have experience like working at different time but in the same space, for example?
Sometimes it depends.
Like, do you guys have a communal wall or communal like physical artifacts where you have different people coming in and contribute?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Could you give us an example?
So we're currently, we're a 24/7 space. I sit in an innovation hub that's open to staff at all times. So we've done a lot of put up questions, talked about projects and things like that on boards where people can contribute anytime that they come in. So you kind of see kind of like that. I guess the evolving conversation that way. But within our own kind of like team, we've got whiteboards and stuff like that in the office that we use quite a bit. But also we have a virtual kind of Miro board that we are able to contribute to because sometimes people work from home.
And has that been a challenge for you to manage?
Yes, because sometimes, like the physical thing is you got to physically update into the virtual world, and also kind of working with a workforce that works, 24/7 shift work, and depending on like who you're engaging within the organization, at what time of their shift and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's quite a bit to manage.
And has that caused your team to think a bit differently on how you approach things?
Yes and no, because engagement is super challenging for us. All the different departments work in their own little silos, and we want to be able to engage with, like, the emergency department, for example. They don't really leave their realm. They don't have time to, as clinicians. So, like, whenever we want to run a workshop or get feedback and things, we got to physically, like, create like a mobile setting and, like, bring it to them, and then run the activity over the course of a week to be able to get, people from different shifts and stuff like that, and then do the work and document and put it on an online virtual setting so other people can see it. So there's a lot of that.
And what's really interesting about what you're sharing there, that's exactly like, so we've been working a lot with health, and especially in government, and you've spoken about documenting, you've spoken about the workshop, you've spoken about priming, and these are different stages of the engagement and having to understand people's availability, where they're located. And this is exactly the type of, like, this model right there is exactly how we start to apply it. Like, nurses aren't going to be available. They work shift work, and we start to use that so we can sit down and go, okay, so our program, we're going to need to, I'm imagining, so for us anyway, I'll talk about us because I'm not going to presume. We have a set process for an engagement from the start, which involves a diagnostic or orientation, just to understand what's going on in the world, to make sure we're all clear and set expectations. I think Kurt talked about that triangle. You can only have two. and then we start a process of engagement to prime participants. Might involve videos explaining what's going to happen in the workshop so they get to know the facilitator, surveys, and then we go over the surveys with different people. And we do a lot of pre-work, and priming includes the board, because the workshop isn't just the main thing, it's everything that leads up. And then afterwards, it's how we synthesize, how we share, how we communicate, how we get people on board, the next steps. And all of these things, we need to consider where and what are the problems in that space. And that's where we've used this to help us. Okay, we know what the concrete things that we need to do. And now we understand the dynamics and the mechanics of how this team works together. So this is how we've applied it, if that makes sense. Cool. So we've got 7 minutes left. As you can see, I'm going to quickly recap of what we've achieved today. So I've completely gone off the rails, in case anyone hasn't noticed, of my plan. I did that because I was really enjoying your conversations, and I'd rather us go narrow and deep than super thin. And I wasn't too sure how many people were going to come today. But what I'm going to get you all to follow me now. Us to be followed. Awesome. So we started off an understanding of kind of your attitudes and how you feel in regards to being a facilitator or a participator. We then used a divergent activity to ask you just to kind of think about what the things that have really worked in your space as a facilitator, as somebody that either participates or facilitates in gatherings, as well as the challenges, the anchors. And I tried to not be specific to a working mode, just because I didn't want to attach that to, like in remote, we do X. I wanted to get an understanding of behaviors, because once you have behaviors, you can then plan, as opposed to being constrained to where that's happening. I then showed you how, you then mapped it on here, and some of you flagged, this is happening in different places and it's cool to duplicate. But you can start to see all of a sudden you've got a map there of problems, of opportunities within a working space. Now, if we were to continue on with this, we'd use something called start, stop, continue, but we're always looking to simplify things, start, stop. And then what we'd usually do is vote on things that we want to accelerate, the things that we can do as quickly as possible. And then once we've gone out there and we come up with these ideas, we always bring it back to rationalize it, because we look at the desirability of what we need to start, what we need to stop, but then we think about feasibility and viability. Well, what needs to be true in order to get a physical space to have that shared asset. So we would have taken you through that. And then we would have had a document of, some ideas and principles that we could consider to take back to our working practice. But I think some of the conversations we've had today has been really about sharing, gathering information, getting experience from other people. I think it's been super valuable. So I'm going to bring you across to a bit more, Nick, as I finish off. And I'll invite you to think of some questions, add them into the chat. They might be directed at me. They might be directed at somebody else in the room. That's cool. Let me know on the board what you loved, what you learned, what you felt was lacking today. There's also the feedback form. There's sticky notes to get you started. Also, next to that, you'll see some free takeaways for everyone. There's the template we used today. So feel free to download that. You can break that apart. You can use sections of it in your conversations. When you reconnect with your team, there's also links to the Future of Now, which is a series we run with other smart people, and you can see how they're introducing different ways of working. And there's free stuff on there, mural templates, book lists, as well as our podcast. So we're always looking for guests. So reach out if you have a story to share. I'm just going to share a little bit of information about us to learn more about More Space. I'll pop that in the chat. There's some links there, so if you want to get back in touch. So I'm just going to open the floor to any questions. I'll hand over to Elise to close us out. Has anyone got any questions or anything they see clarification on? No, all good. I think everyone's good. Elise, I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay, 3 minutes left. Woohoo! Way to beat the clock. Good morning, Australia. All right. So Dan's given us a way to give him feedback, and that's fabulous. One of the things I love to hear from folks as we are closing out a session like this is one short phrase or sentence, really very quickly, either in the chat or feel free to holler it out loud. What's one thing you learned today that you wish more people knew? One thing you learned today that you wish more people knew? It'll help you fill out your Nick Cage's learning stickies when you get to it. Yeah. Right? Don't you wish that would spread more, Kurt?
I do.
I see thoughtful typing faces. Right.
I think that's important what Nan says there. The barriers I'm encountered are not unique to me, my organisations, and that's something that I feel that these kind of forums that you provide, Elise, help facilitators and practitioners understand, engage. It isn't them; it is these environments. People are sharing it, and that's the opportunity of everyone coming together to be able to discuss and hold that forum. So I think that's awesome.
Facilitators, practitioners, business leaders, team leaders, anybody who's trying to collaborate effectively, right? Yeah.
Dan, I just want to say I'm not able to, maybe it's me, but the links don't seem to be clickable. I keep trying to click on the links on your resources and your URL, and I'm clicking and I'm not getting anything happening no. So I don't, maybe it is just me.
That's a good opportunity to talk about the follow-up and how we'll get information to everybody. So
I was just
What
going to
to
say, if you roll down the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see if you roll it down, it lights up. It's a mural thing. There's you don't just click on the actual text. It's just down in the bottom corner. You can see my cursor.
Mm.
Sorry.
Well, one thing we can do after this event, we will we'll post the recording plus all of the links and the mural board and things in the MIC. So any links that are in this board, we'll extract and put in the actual MIC recording so that you can get to them that way. If you haven't already, we love feedback in the anonymous form so that we can give that to Dan as well afterwards, and then aggregate it in the way that we do for everyone. And then save the dates. We've got more things coming up. So we have the big experiment, the innovation experiment kickoff in January, as I mentioned earlier. Would love to see you there. And then more events in December, all different experiments of their own. So with that, thank you so much, Dan, for putting this together. Thank you for walking us through the sailboat and the matrix and all of the things and making space for the deeper conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Great to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks for being a great partner, Swan. Bye.